Let's just get right into the show. Okay, so TNA. I think it was Tuesday. Yeah, it was Tuesday. It's been a long week. I went live on the YouTube channel on Tuesday, and I went live on Twitter. I had one of our biggest live audiences that we've ever had on our channel during that live thing. I just happened to be home, so that worked out. Gail Kim, who's been heading up the talent relations department for TNA for the last year or so, maybe longer, maybe 2 years. She's been talent relations and she's been a producer. Was fired by TNA. Ariel Schnerner, whatever his last name is. Yeah, him. He essentially was the Triple H of TNA, but he was like the chief creative officer. I don't know exactly what the label they gave him, but that was kind of the way it was explained to me. Like that was his job. He basically he was running the day-to-day operations of TNA. So he was, even though they gave the TNA president title to somebody else, he was the guy that actually was doing a lot of Scott D'Amore's daily operations. Okay, so he got shit canned as well. And then a bunch of people in the that you guys have probably never heard of, and I did a deep dive explaining some of them. I actually got some inside info on some of these people. I put it out in a tweet. I talked about it on Patreon already, so the information is out there. Yeah, Triple H doesn't see color or read lawsuits. Maybe that was Ariel. Maybe that's why he got fired. Maybe because he's colorblind. Being colorblind can disqualify you for certain jobs. Actually, that is like a legit thing. So you do have to be able to see color to have certain jobs in life. But and I'll run down some of their names. Rob Kligman, who was in charge of ads, he did a great job. Actually, I got the info that I was able to get was he actually was the first guy in that position of the chief revenue officer. He was the first guy in that position that actually was getting like outside sponsorships and was generating revenue for the company. Now, like for a company this small that doesn't really generate a lot of revenue, like he did almost $1 million in ad sales within a 12-month period for TNA, which is insane, right? So he did a great job. He did such a good job that he's out. He's fired. Michael Shevchenko, digital guy, he's fired. Romy Glazer. I said this on Patreon, but I'm pretty sure when I first heard the name Romy Glazer, I thought that was a pro wrestler name. I was like, nobody's name can be that cool. Like, I don't think that's like a legitimate name, but no, it turns out that's her real name. She was also in the marketing department and was doing live event marketing for them and digital marketing. She's gone. She was a contractor for them. So she wasn't a full-time employee, but they went ahead and let her go. Raphael Morphy, who was doing some of their live events, guy responsible for a lot of the big gates. They just did 2 tapings in El Paso a couple weeks ago, and they did well over 3,000 each night, which to compare, and I'm not trying to it's not me being tribalistic here. It's just a comparator. That's like those are good Dynamite numbers right now. Like Dynamite is having a good night and Collision's having a good night when they reach 3,000. So for TNA, which is a much smaller company, they have a much smaller reach and a much smaller budget for them to be able to do for their TV tapings over 3,000 per night and their El Paso tapings. That's pretty good for them. And they did similar numbers whenever they were in Dallas, Texas recently. So he was doing such a good job. They went ahead and let him go too. And Carlos Silva is the TNA president. He is the 3rd president they've had in just over a year. They went from Scott D'Amore to Anthony Ciccione and to now Carlos Silva in December. And the reason why all these changes are being made for the people that I just mentioned that were like unknowns, like kind of more behind the scenes types that you've never really heard of before, it's because he's just bringing in his own people. He's bringing in people from like mainstream sports that he's worked with throughout his career to bring them in. And so they got high level experience, and we'll see if this turns out to be a good thing. I don't know if it is or not. So we'll see. But as far as Gail Kim and Ariel Schnerner goes, Gail Kim specifically, she's gone because, and there's multiple reports that have cited this, right? BQ had cited this, Sean Ross Sapp had cited this, and I think a couple of other places, is that she was having a lot of arguments with management, essentially. And I think that's basically what it boiled down to, is like a personality conflict with her and some of the new management team, specifically like the Carlos Silva team that just came in and took over. There was also this thing that BQ reported on that Gail and Ariel, who Ariel is like the guy in charge, they were like butting heads and not getting along. And BQ reported, and he was told this, and I can verify that he was told this 100%. He was told this, that they gave Anthem an ultimatum, like they can't, like it's either one of us has to go, basically. So you got to basically pick. BQ was told that. He reported that on his channel. I didn't get to it here. I was just like, it's BQ's story. So he reported it on his channel and put that out there. It got aggregated. Well, Gail Kim actually reached out to BQ yesterday. BQ is fresh out of surgery, high as a goddamn kite. And Gail Kim's blowing up his DM, not blowing up, but Gail Kim's in his DMs, and he was like thinking that he might still be sleeping because he's got like Gail Kim in his DMs and saying, hey, look, I appreciate all your coverage of TNA over the years, but I just want to let you know that I never like gave anybody an ultimatum ever, right? So she just flat out denied that she ever gave an ultimatum. So, and BQ, to his credit, put out another video, like a follow-up video, and said, yeah, hey, look, Gail actually reached out to me personally and wanted to let everybody know that she never gave anybody an ultimatum. I don't think Gail Kim's a liar, so I got no reason to think that she's, not telling the truth. So the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, and I think, and JD, you could probably jump in on this. I think it's very possible.
Great.
You there?
You tell me.
You're kind of cutting in, so I'll keep rambling. So I think it's very possible that Gail and Ariel were not getting along, and it gotten to a point where that relationship had soured so much that Anthem felt like those two people were putting them in a position to have to pick between the two. And instead of doing that, they just fired them both. I think that could be a real possibility. Or it could just be that, whoever gave BQ the information, they were just flat out wrong. I think like maybe that was their interpretation of the situation. That could also be a thing. Either way, they're both gone. And it wasn't because they were on a winning streak, right? Like the behind the scenes people were on a winning streak. I think these guys, Gail and Ariel, one would think that because of the arguments and the infighting and some of the drama that was happening between them kind of led to both of them getting out of there. I think that's a real possibility. We don't know we'll probably never know exactly what happened there. I'm sure Gail will probably get more of her side out. She already got some of her side out through BQ. I think she'll get more of her side out eventually. And we'll probably get somewhere close to the truth down the road. I don't think BQ was lied to. I think that was that person's interpretation of what was going on. I don't think Gail Kim is lying. I think the truth is just somewhere in the middle. It just depends on which side of the fence you're on, right? But I do know that looks like JD's going to be back in a little bit. What I do know is that BQ got legit sources, has done a great job covering TNA. What he does that I don't think anybody else does it quite as well as he does is he can kind of get the information from the company itself without all the corporate bullshit speak. A lot of people will get straight up quotes like that are meant for public consumption. The information that he gets is very unfiltered, anti-corporate talking points, right? And then and it's through a conversation that he's having, and then he will then get permission to be able to run with it or not. And then he runs with it, and it's like 99% true. Everything about what he said regarding that situation, the only thing that's not been verified is whether or not an ultimatum was given, and Gail Kim flat out denies that, like strongly denies that. So I get the feeling that no specific ultimatum was given, but that the company felt that they were being put in a position to pick between the two, and they just shit-canned both of them. That is my read on the situation. Okay, JD, you're back. So I kind of went on a soliloquy there for a minute. Did you catch any of it, JD?
Most of it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. It says I'm getting the low bar, and I don't know why. It's just I apologize. King of the North brought up a good point. And it's if things are all hunky dory right now with TNA, like we got this super scrubs that are along. Why are we firing people?
Okay, BQ's gone again, or not BQ, but JD's gone again. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the chat. So sorry guys, let's get to the chat. And I know that King of the North. Okay, this is a good question. Why hire people who are successfully steering the ship based on business metrics? IO Productions. Hold on. Okay, yeah. Let's see. Oh gosh, my mic is cutting in and out. All right, guys, let me know if my mic is good. Tell me if I'm good or not. All right. Here we go. Okay, so King of the North says, so if they're doing such successful houses and tapings, why fire everyone? I think that is the $1 million question. Why fire everyone? Why fire Ariel? Since Ariel has taken over the app business, their app Impact or TNA Plus has doubled, right? Like they have doubled. Ad sales up, house shows up. Everything is up, yet all these people are getting fired. That is the question. And I think it's just typical corporate stuff. And it's one of those things, like we have all these business metrics in front of us that are telling us that everything is going good. They hired this guy to be the TNA president because they weren't happy with Scott D'Amore. Anthony Ciccione came in, right, replaced Scott, and things were going up, but he was never really the guy that they wanted for that position. Remember, before Anthony Ciccione came in and before Scott was named, or before Ciccione came in and took over for Scott, they had a guy in here named Richard Schaefer who has like legit high-level mainstream boxing experience, right? And with Golden Boy Promotions, he's promoted boxing overseas. He's John Jones's manager. So they brought him in to be the head of Anthem Sports. They wanted Richard Schaefer to take this thing from where it was at to like way up here. Not just TNA, but TNA, Invicta, they wanted to bring in a boxing promotion. They were looking for Anthem Sports to get launched, right? To become more mainstream, getting TV deals, getting this whole thing. Well, he didn't last very long. He didn't like, nothing really happened under him. And now he's back. I think he's back with Floyd Mayweather now. And I think he's still working with John Jones. He's kind of like not promoting or anything at this point. So we had that. Yeah, Scott D'Amore was the TNA president. They felt like that he could get the ball to a certain point, but if they're ever going to go further, they needed to go ahead and get rid of him, right? So they get rid of him. They bring in Ciccione, who they just elevated from the Fight Network, right? And so him and Ariel seemed like they were a good team. They've been working for the Fight Network forever, and they. But I don't think that Ciccione was ever the guy that they wanted for that position. They were looking to bring in somebody from the outside that has high-level mainstream sports experience. So they bring in this guy, Carlos Silva, back in December. I looked at his resume. This is not like an NFL exec. It's not like, I think he's got some Major League Soccer experience, Professional Fighters League, and some other stuff like that, but nothing really like, he is very much like, comparing him to Richard Schaefer. Richard Schaefer is like, like levels above, right? So, but they brought him in, and this is their guy. This is the guy that they're going with, and he's bringing in his own team. As far as like the production hires that he's bringing in, like I explained here a couple weeks ago, I think that based on the resumes that they have, like these are all high-level people. The guy that is replacing, I think it's a woman actually, the woman that's replacing Michael Shevchenko, David something, is replacing the digital guy. He's got high-level experience, right? The ad team that they're bringing in, a high-level experience with mainstream sports. So that's kind of what they're doing. That's who all they're going with. But to get to the point and like to address the elephant in the room, like the thumbnail, total nonstop chaos. That has been the theme since TNA moved away from Impact Wrestling to TNA. It's been straight up chaos. They fired Scott D'Amore, right? They lose the Motor City Machine Guns. And then all of a sudden, business just like booms, right? They make the deal with WWE. Joe Hendry gets hot. The Hardy Boys all of a sudden are available. They get hot again. And next thing you know, every metric that you can find on this company has just like skyrocketed, right? Like no other wrestling promotion in the last year has like tripled their business other than TNA. Legit. I mean, it's still small level, but like no other company has as like grown as much as TNA. Like they're the fastest growing company out there. And you can say, well, 10 years ago they were way up here. Well, yeah, but that was 10 years ago. Like they came from the depths of hell to now where they're at right now. So it's quite interesting to see where they're at. JD might come back in. So look, I'm gonna go ahead and address some of your comments. The comment section is blowing up. Hey guys, you're in the comment section, and I love you. God bless you. If you're watching this on Twitter, throw down a retweet. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like button. I would greatly appreciate it. IO Production says, for Dreamer and talent relations, it's different. You got to have someone who knows these wrestlers. Yeah, King of the North. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with Tommy Dreamer being in talent relations. People don't want to hear this, but people like Tommy Dreamer. Like everybody kind of likes that guy. So he's been around forever, and seems like a guy that can work with everybody. The thing about that, talent relations, that's difficult for people to kind of wrap their head around, because I've had a similar job in the military the last couple of years. You have to know how to talk to these people up here, and you got to know how to talk to the people down here, and you can't talk to everybody the same, right? You have to adapt to everybody's personalities, and talent relations is essentially a thankless position, and you have to learn how to eat plates of shit, right? And then you have to learn how to get in people's asses, and you have to learn how to build people back up, and then you gotta fight the battles that are worth fighting, and let a lot of the smaller shit go. And that is a really difficult, skill set for people to have. And when you're a high performing person that is a pro wrestler, maybe being in talent relations is probably not for you. That's like saying Peyton Manning should be the head football coach. Like, what he's going to be asking of people is going to be unrealistic, because he was so great at everything. And you're going to constantly be comparing people to what you're capable of doing. So it's a difficult thing. All right, Gerard says you have to get behind him 100% if you're hiring Carlos, so he's got to be able to make the changes he wants. All right, let's see. Says I agree about wrestlers knowing wrestlers. Dreamer is, I don't know what that means. Sorry. Okay, King. The changes don't make sense based off the PR and metrics being pushed. Gerard. Yeah. So. Oh, sorry. Here we go. JD is back.
Maybe. We'll see. So I'm on my phone right now because I got this bullshit rural internet. So I'll try not to bitch about my stuff. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. You look great. Everything is good. You're back. I agree, King. The changes don't make sense. And I'm trying to wrap my head around why so many people got fired at once if everything is going great. And that is what doesn't make sense to me.
It's complete and total horseshit. I don't buy it for a minute, because that's not what you do. You don't fire people when things are going great. They were spending a lot when they weren't doing great, and now they are doing great, selling houses. Now all of a sudden it's, fall in line behind dear leader. Like, I know there's people that are just, to be in this chat and to be like, maybe TNA isn't doing it right, gets you like tomatoes thrown at you sometimes. But there's something seriously suspect about this, right? Like, I don't buy it for a minute. I don't buy that, we just got to get everybody on the new president's side. That's bullshit. Nobody comes in and cleans house when you don't have to. Yeah. And you don't do it now. You do it when you first get there. I mean, like, it doesn't, and changing presidents every 3 weeks isn't good either. So I'm highly suspect on what's going on. Maybe this company was in much worse financial shape than we thought it was, to the point where we have to do all this massive house cleaning right now. Like, I don't buy it for a minute.
Yeah. I can't buy that they're in this financial dire straits, because the people they're bringing in seem to be a bit more expensive. Like, because they got higher level experience than the people that they just fired.
Who are they bringing in? I mean, like, Joe Lanza brought up a good point in the flagship this week, that they made a big deal about re-signing Jason Hutch. And it's like,
I'm talking about the backstage people that they just hired in like production, ads, marketing. These are like high level mainstream sports people. The guy that they just hired to take over their digital is like a guy that's got like NFL type level experience. So I'm talking about those people. The wrestlers, they did seem like they cut some of their talent budget. They've brought some people in. They've let a bunch of people go. I think all that stuff's going to iron out. But I'm talking about the backstage people that they hired and that they've replaced all these people with. like they replaced Josh Matthews with a guy that's coming in from like CBS and shit. You know what I mean? Like they was doing like this, that did the CBS Sunday morning NFL show for years and was working for the NFL Network and the NFL Hall of Fame. So like those people they're bringing in are like high level people. So that's what tells me like they're actually spending more money. Like the venues that they're running, like UBS Arena, is far more expensive than the venue that they used to run in New York, which was the Melrose Ballroom in Queens, right? So like they're spending more on the venues, they're spending more on that stuff. Now they're spending more on the backstage. I wish they would spend more on the fucking talent that I have to watch every week because they just lost a lot of people.
But that doesn't make sense. I mean, this is where it gets where like this tells me like we believe me, nobody has been a bigger advocate of them upgrading production for years. We used to bitch on this show when they were hiring kids who didn't know how to white balance the cameras.
Yeah.
Right. But they had really good wrestlers in the ring. Now you're going to have these people who I assume are on the back end of things because no one's leaving CBS straight to go to work for TNA, right? To go to work for Anthem. I don't buy that. You're on the downside, right? You're getting people who have good experience, but you're not getting them at their prime, which is fine. That's how these things work. But who are you going to watch? Like, why are you going to have this crystal clear product on the hopes that you get people that aren't ready for prime time in NXT anymore? Because that's what you got. Because you're releasing veteran talent.
Yeah,
like,
it
doesn't make sense to me.
I think this week's episode had 3 people from NXT, out of like maybe 20 that were on the show. So but they're using NXT. Honestly, I think there's too much NXT people on this show, specifically in the women's division. So I completely get that. But the ones that people tend to focus on the most are the NXT people. Those are the ones that get the most retweets. But the focal point of the show is obviously Joe Hendry. It's the Hardys. It's Mike Santana. It's Moose. It's those cats. The NXT people, they come in, they do a match, and then they're gone again, right? So, so NXT is not like a major focal point of the company as far as like when you're watching the show, but it seems to be the people that don't watch the show. That's the part that they focus on, if that makes sense.
Because
that's
I hate WWE, so I'm going to do that.
Yeah. That's what's grabbing everybody else's attention.
Well, I get it because this is a big thing for the company, right? It's part of what's making it click right now, so to say.
Oh, 100%.
I still don't understand though why. Like, you need people you need talent, right? And the problem, and like, unless you're just gonna throw a bunch of WWE ID people on there or like more GCW folks, like it doesn't. And you've already got a bunch anyway. Like it doesn't make sense to me to be releasing good talent and then finally hiring all these good production people. Like, are you just so certain that you're going to stay relatively hot to what TNA is that it's going to be worth? Like, I want a good production, but it's just I don't get purging. I don't get purging when things are at their peak. It doesn't make business-wise doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't to me. Like I really wish they would have fought for Josh Alexander. Like I get why they let I love Speedball Bailey, but I get why they let him go, right?
Yeah, I agree too. I agree.
Like like he is a guy, he's never been on like any of the top companies. He is not identified with TNA because he was working like everywhere. And the like when we realized like a year ago that his contract was going to be up, we're like, yeah, he's going to go to AEW for sure. Josh Alexander is the guy. Like he was like when you thought of Impact Wrestling and you thought of TNA, like Josh was one of those guys that like that's one of the first names that pops up. Not Speedball, but it was like Josh and the Motor City Machine Guns and those cats. So yeah, I wish they would have fought for them. Like okay, losing Kushida and Trent Seven, I'm just like, who cares? So like they're nice people, I'm sure. But I didn't really care that those guys were gone. I didn't really care that Rhino was gone. I didn't care that PCO was gone. So like a lot of these, like Josh is really, and Jordan Grace were like the 2 people that I thought were like, those were like the significant losses. Jordan Grace, you weren't going to be able to compete with WWE's money on that one. So it's like no matter what they're doing, they still don't have a TV deal that pays them a significant amount of money. So they're not going to be able to compete with all those people. So what I don't get is they recently just cut Alexander Hammerstone. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I don't get. Like, what this is what I'm talking about. It's you got a guy with a TV look like Hammerstone, right? Who's good, who cuts a decent enough promo. Like he's not an amazing promo, but he's fine, more than serviceable.
Right.
Like that's a guy that should be with this company for a long, long time to come,
Yeah,
right? Like it just
and he so the problem with Hammerstone is he was missing dates.
yeah,
He you know what I mean? And so like last
I
year
get that.
there was like one of the docs thought that he had a heart issue, which turned out he didn't have a heart issue, but he was he had to miss dates for that. And then in November he hurt his knee and they had to miss some more dates. So it seemed like every time they were going to get behind the guy, he was missing dates. Like there was a rumor that him and Jake something were going to win the tag titles. And then next thing you know, he hurts his knee, he has to be gone. And then by the time he gets back, Jake something blows out his bicep, so he has to have surgery. So now he's gone. So they came back, and it was like a year later. I think it was probably an option type situation. They said just go ahead and go. We've been doing like here's the thing for a guy like Hammerstone, who I think they should keep. Like he's missed all these dates, and the houses only ever went up. So it's like was he vital to the company? Well, not really. But I would push back and say, you just lost all these other people. Like he is a guy that could ascend to the top of the ranks now that all these other people are gone, but yet you let him go too. So I don't really get that.
Well, and then here's the thing too, though, is why do people miss dates? Like, why does that happen in wrestling traditionally? It's because you're not getting paid enough, right? And again, in this case, he had some injury issues, but my
Yeah.
whole thing is like, we'll pay people more, right? And that's the thing with TNA is like they're not. It's not like for most people. Like, sure, the Hardys are getting paid quite well, and I'm sure Joe Hendry's got a good deal right now that he's champ. But I mean, like, if we're spending this money on having top line production, finally, we should be paying people to be making this a priority, which is something this company has had a hard time with for well
Yeah.
over a decade, if not since its inception.
Yeah.
Right? Is making this a place where you can call your home base.
Yeah.
Right, like you said,
Well,
Speedball. Speedball was all over the place. He wasn't just a TNA guy. Well, there's a
yeah.
reason for that. You
Right. Well,
know,
the thing about TNA is like, can they really be expected to pay people full-time money when they're working 3 or 4 dates a month? Right. And so I think they pay people like essentially on a per date deal. Some people are getting full-time money. I assume the Hardys are, but the Hardys are still taking indies. Moose doesn't hardly work anywhere. so I get the feeling he's pretty well taken care of, right? He's probably one of the higher paid guys there,
but don't you want to have it in your? Shouldn't you be structuring deals where they have right of first refusal?
they
And if you're
do.
getting, but if you're paying them enough, like it shouldn't be an issue. You know what I'm
The
saying?
only guy that when I'm talking about Hammerstone, he missed dates because he was hurt,
He
right?
hurt.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
I mean, it seems ridiculous that you're holding injuries against them when they're getting hurt. Like especially if they're getting hurt in your rings, right? Which I don't know for sure if Hammerstone isn't.
Right. Well,
I'm just
they
the
probably
whole
felt
thing.
like we're going to keep this guy on. We're paying him. He's gotten himself hurt, like doing whatever he's doing. And should we keep the guy on the roster or should we just cut our losses right now? And they ended up cutting. Like I disagree with it, by the way.
Yeah,
Just so everyone knows,
would.
I'm a Hammerstone guy. I'm just trying to rationalize the thinking. Like you just lost Josh Alexander, and now you got this guy. So they must think like, hey, look, it's that sunk cost fallacy. Well, we've already paid this guy this much for a year. I get the feeling that Hammerstone probably had some competitive offers and they beat it because TNA had just gotten relaunched and they're trying to like go out there because and compete for talent, and so they brought him in, and so they're probably paying him a pretty decent amount of money, and they're not able to push him the way they wanted to because he just hasn't been as available as they would like him to be. So I think they should have just worked with him.